Dear brothers and sisters, now during the Great Lent, we go through the spiritual temptation. The Lord needs to see if we truly love Him and if we are ready to follow on Golgotha, to follow Him on Golgotha. And at this time, it is good to think about this mystery of accepting Christ and this mystery of why it was the people who were closest to Him who killed Him, who betrayed Him, and who have caused Him to die on Golgotha, and who were the ones representing devil, the vessels of devil. We remember how Satan entered into heart of Judas, and it was no one else but Satan who has inspired those high priests and those scribes and Pharisees to fight against Christ, to judge Him, to instigate the people, to make the Romans go and kill Him. And those were all monotheists, okay? Because very often the modern scholars and also ecumenists, they would say that all monotheistic religions are very close. What is far is some other religions, paganism, atheism, pantheism, everything else. Even that they are trying to pull, okay, eventually. But first of all, their task is to say everybody who is believes in one God are so close to each other, okay? Abrahamic religions, Abrahamic accords, all these things, okay? And it is nothing else but this logic which will bring the Antichrist. Okay, and I've spoken about this many times in other videos. Okay, today I want to go into understanding the spiritual principles that work behind it. Okay. For example, we can ask this question: if you copy Christ, is it good or bad? Isn't Apostle Paul says, you should be like me as I'm like Christ? Okay, so this is something very good, to be like Christ, to live like Christ, to think like Christ, to love people like Christ, in everything to be like Christ. An image, to be an image of Christ, if you will. As Christ is an image of God the Father, we should be the image of Christ, right? But at the same time, the Antichrist is also called an image, antitypos. It's a copy. It's a copy of Christ. He will be so similar, and you would say, why is that bad? If somebody is so similar to Christ and he leads everybody, isn't that good? Well, we will be coming to this mystery, of devil being the monkey of God, trying to copy God and trying to deceive and to put another meaning, another motivation, another goal into what seemingly looks like God and Christianity. So a fake Christian is much more dangerous than a pagan or Satanist or atheists, for that matter. Fake Christian. And I was wondering in the past why Masons, who were always enemies of Christianity, why do they demand their new members to believe in God? They don't accept those who don't believe in God. Which God? They say, it doesn't matter. You believe in God, come over. Because they expect to be able to brainwash him, and since he has this basic belief in some God, and they know that most people don't really love God. They believe because of, I don't know, some reason. So they will be able to implant the idea about this God. What kind of God he is? How should you live? What should you do? What should you aspire to if you believe in this God? And the God that they will bring is the Satan. Of course, God in brackets, okay, but he is a spirit. So this is the mystery that we need to really get into if we want to understand the mystery of how the Israelites became worshippers of Satan. Okay, having same Bible, having the holy temple, having all the commandments, okay, and they became the worst. They became those who have carried out the worst deed in the world ever done. Murder of God. Jesus Christ. Because he is true God. Okay, so to come to that, we first let us think about other religions, okay? Because before Christ, there were other monotheistic religions. We had it in Zoroastrianism, worshipping fire. We had it with this Egyptian cult of sun, okay, Ra, who was the highest and even the only god at some point, okay. And there were also these Vedic religions, okay, this proto-Hinduism, who had the highest god, this Brahman, okay, and in China we had this Shangdi, who's also highest god. So why all of that was paganism and not something which is blessed by God, let's say like this, something that had to be rejected later. Well, to understand that, we need to think about these Israelites always trying to worship something else. For example, they've had this golden calf, golden bull, okay. Why God hated this behavior? Remember when Moses went and he was on the mountain for too long, they built this, they had a lot of gold with them, so they just donated all this gold to make this calf. So it was a big thing. It was a big thing. And the reason for God's wrath that followed was not that it was some image, okay? Yes, this is the God, monotheistic, it's one real God, okay, this is it. But they made it from silver, from gold, but the problem was not that. And it's not that, okay, it doesn't like me, it's a bull, I'm not a bull, so why? That was not the reason. The reason is that they've put other content, other ideas, other aspirations into this idol, into this visual representation. This is the representation. It was not about that they would say, okay, this is so holy, this gold, it's so holy, it's shiny, and the Lord didn't like that. No, the biggest thing is that what kind of God was that? What they were expecting from this God? It was completely not what he was going to give them. Okay? And then later, we read they always try to worship this Baal and other, gods of that time. Well, Baal means Lord. When they said that we worship Baal, it means we worship Lord. Okay, so nowadays these scholars would say, well, it's also monotheism, it's also the main God, it's also, so it's maybe just a different name, but actually the name was the same. The name was God, Lord. Okay. But for some reason, God hated this so much that he burnt all those priests of this Baal at some point. Why? Why is that? Well, because they've put a different content into that. Okay? So we need to distinguish between two things. Okay, to understand this mystery, this principle, we need to distinguish between true image. True image is reflection of reality. Okay, and copy. Copy is a external mimicking. Okay, it's like fake money. It could be exactly the same, look exactly the same, but it's fake. Fake because it's done by someone else, not by central bank, and that's why it's harmful for the economy. Okay, or fake anything. Okay, eventually it's gonna either break or it's gonna harm you. Okay, try to use a, I don't know, fake gun. Okay, it will shoot at you. Okay, if you use it will blow up in your hands, or something else is going to happen, but it would look exactly the same. Okay, in the spiritual world it's much more dangerous than that. It's much more dangerous, something so fake. So this is why the Holy Fathers, when they saw let's say the cult of Mithra in the 2nd century, they said that this cult is the most anti-Christian cult that there is. Why? Because it was more, it was the closest one. I mean, it was resembling the church the most. They had even Eucharist, okay, with bread and water. It was so similar. It was super similar. And now scholars will say, oh, you see, it's so similar, so it's all good, it's all influencing each other and so nice, etc. But people who are spiritual, they said this is the worst, this is the most dangerous, most harmful. Because by pretending of serving the true God, they are serving Satan. Okay? And people are deceived so much by that. And all this, for example, with the Catholics trying to deceive Orthodox by mimicking everything that Orthodox do. You know, this Eastern Rite Catholics mimicking everything, okay, but different content inside. Okay, you take this bait and you're done. Okay, so this. This is like adultery. I also bring this example often. From the outside, it may look as men and women have similar things together as in marriage, but it's exactly the opposite, because it doesn't have what the marriage does. The commitment, the love, the self-sacrifice. It doesn't have anything of that. But from the external, it looks so much same. Okay. So, so this is the difference between Christ and Antichrist. Okay, what comes from God and comes from devil could be so similar. So, coming to the Jewish situation, okay, we can say that at least from the time of Babylon, of the exile to Babylon, those Jews, they were on this sure path of forming a religion that will not, the mindset, the doctrine and everything, that will not receive Christ. They will not tolerate him. They were on this path of bowing down to Satan. They were on this path. There were still healthy elements in there, and those became the apostles eventually, but in this core and in its majority, it was on that sure path. Okay, and it took maybe 400 or 500 years from those times to eventually develop into what the Lord came and criticized so much. Okay, they were building this huge temple. This Herod, he built this huge temple. 46 years he was building this temple. Everybody was amazed. Okay, he would be the most pious man in the world, and he was the one who tried to kill Christ, and the sure representative of Antichrist, okay, and killed so many babies, sacrificing them to whom? To Satan. So you can be building great, huge palaces for God, huge temples, and sacrificing to Satan human lives. And that is the same thing that was done over and over through centuries. And we see what's happened to the Catholics. Okay. So now we can say that this mindset and religion and spirituality, if you will, of worshipping Satan on a religious level was formed by then, especially during the first century in this persecution, and then later in this Kabbalistic and Talmudic mixture, it was done, okay? So later, it was just a matter of implanting it in the church and everywhere else. And we see this Judaization of Christian nations, this process that is going throughout centuries. And we see how they succeeded with the Roman Catholics. Okay? They said, okay, you be Christians, okay, don't worry, everything is fine, but you think like Jews. You think about worldly power. You think about expansion. You think about some representative who has everything and total authority, etc., who will rule the whole church instead of Christ. And he's got all these ambitions with politics, and so he has these crusades and all other stuff. And then it's producing its children, these Protestants, who don't... Okay, so, for example, from the Catholics, we can say it's so simple. You have people in charge of the church who don't love Christ. But they have all this church in their disposal, and they are now thinking what to do with that. And what can you do if you have such a great resource at your hands? You pretend that you are so Christian, you copy everything Christian as much as you can. And you stick to tradition, you're super traditionalist. You have Latin, etc., okay? But the content, the spirituality, the goal, the motivation, everything is already anti-Christian. Okay? Because nothing else is possible. It's going to be either you serve God or Satan. That's it. No other choice. So this is what was produced, and later with the Protestants, it was another success, another yet bigger success of reprogramming these Christians, these so-called Christians already, that they are also in that paradigm of apostasy, this paradigm of serving Satan that was approved and became so well developed by those Judaizers. Okay? And now the rest of the world is not much safer. And in the true church, in the Orthodox Church, they were trying to work through what? Through Caesaropapism, through worshipping of Caesar, through implanting this idea that he is the representative of God, and so we just need to go along. Okay? And the Lord told in the Revelation to the church in Pergam that I know you live where the throne of Satan is, the altar of the Satan, but you have not bowed down and you've remained loyal to me, and this is why I will give you the wrath of glory. And this was the case in the Orthodox Church throughout centuries. There is, from the time of the 4th century of Saint Constantine, the emperor, this path of church and state was very close. And there was always this temptation, okay, trying to reprogram the church, subdue the church, okay. And of course, many emperors, they did not want to be Satan, to worship Satan. They were truly Christians. So, okay, but most could not escape this logic and this spirit. And unfortunately, the church sometimes went alone. But there were many patriarchs and metropolitans, bishops, who opposed, and some were martyred for that. Okay? There were. I can bring some from Saint John Chrysostom, okay, who was persecuted. And then we had the patriarchs, Tarasius, Arsenius, Gregory II, Athanasius I, Nicholas, Polyeft, and many others. And in Russia, we also had many. Metropolitan Alexei and Metropolitan Job of Moscow, Metropolitan Philip, and many others, okay? But not all. Not all. And even until now, this is the greatest danger. So with the Orthodox Church, the devil is trying to mimic everything so that it looks like Orthodox, and you adhere to the canons, to the liturgy, to ritual, to everything. It was exactly the same, but different content, different spirit, etc. It's already just a decoration. And this will happen with us, brothers and sisters, if we don't love Christ. I will repeat this over and over. If we don't love Christ, we have no other choice than to slip into worshiping the Antichrist and becoming idolaters and Satanists. Okay? There is no other way. And this is why this spirit of ecumenism is becoming so prominent, because people are not in, they lose grace. They depart from grace. They don't have the grace of the Lord. And they would be slipping either into ecumenism or into Pharisee, this like old believers, that kind of spirit, okay? This formalism and Pharisee, this legalistic formalism, okay? Just the worship of form. It's also paganism, okay? Idol worshipping. So this is what I have to share with you today, and we truly need to understand this difference, okay, between copy and image. Okay, the image is the true image, icon. Christ is icon of God the Father, and we have to be icon of Him if we want to be Christians, not just copy. Okay. This is actually what happened also with Protestants. They just say, you just need to do the same. What we can do is what we just learn from Christ to do the same. And that's it. No. Okay? And some Orthodox are taught that you just need to adhere to tradition. We are Orthodox because we have tradition. So just go along with the tradition. Sorry, if you don't love Christ, it's all just replacing Him. Okay? The more stuff you've got, the more it means that you are far away from Him. You're just trying to replace Him with something else. Okay? Just be honest with yourself. We are going to go through some very hard challenges, brothers and sisters. The Church of Christ is going to go through that. And if we don't understand what is what in the Church and what are these spiritual principles, we will lose big time. Okay? becoming truly worshippers of the Satan, and eventually accepting this Antichrist and his kingdom, which will mean that we love Satan, and this is why for those people there is no salvation. It's just impossible. If you love Satan, how can you be with God if that's your God? Okay, you will just go along with him into Gehenna, into this eternal condemnation. You will be haters of God, thinking that you love him. And we really understand what the Lord said when he said, the days are coming when those who are killing you will think that they serve God by doing that. Okay, we see that already with all these wars that are going on. Most of the people who are waging those wars, they think that they serve God, believe it or not. Okay, may the Lord be with all of you, and may the Lord help us on this path of the great land to truly learn humbleness, self-sacrifice, and truly be his sons and daughters, okay, inheriting his salvation, witnessing his love and resurrection, and not being reprogrammed and deceived by all these spirits of the Satan which are out there. I mean, God bless, sisters.